I'm Harrison Graham. Let's take a look at some early Bears training camp winners and losers as we are 5 practices into camp. 1 padded practice, 4 non-padded practices. So it's very early. Things are going to change a lot, but there's enough early information to go off on that we can take a look at some standouts and some guys who haven't quite stood out as much. Let's start with Romar Odunze as the second-year receiver somehow manages to fly under the radar because obviously he was in the same draft with Caleb, who was the number 1 pick, and the quarterback's obviously always going to steal the spotlight, and DJ Moore's on this team. But Romar Odunze is a big-time talent who needs to have a big year, period, point blank, into story. Had a solid rookie year, but needs to take a big jump and be at least the clear number 2 receiver on this team. If not, maybe challenge DJ to be the top guy. And he's had a good camp so far. Caleb has targeted him a lot. They've used him a lot in jump ball situations, which is a really big strength of his. He caught 72% of contested catch balls last year as a rookie, so that is something he already does exceptionally well. We all saw a couple of practices ago, Caleb and the starting offense ended a 2-minute drill with kind of a back shoulder jump ball fade to Rome that he was able to high point and haul in the corner of the end zone. So I expect him to be utilized a lot, and you're certainly seeing that early on in training camp. So arrow pointing up when it comes to Romar Odunze's stock. Who do you guys think is going to be the wide receiver 1 this year? And you can base that on whatever you want, whether it's stats or just overall ability this year. Who gets featured more? Type DJ for DJ Moore, RO for Romar Odunze. I think you could go either way. I think both guys are going to be heavily involved. All right, Aussie Trapillos, we take a look at the rookie offensive tackle out of Boston College. He's a winner as well. We talked about this on our earlier episode Monday morning after the first padded practice that I do think it's at least somewhat notable that he started the first training camp practice without pads with the first team offense at left tackle, and the first padded practice, he got the first crack with the first team offense before Braxton Jones and Karan Amagaji rotated in with the ones as well. Obviously, this is a 3-man competition, and I don't think we're near a conclusion by any means, especially considering we're only 1 padded practice in. But my gut instinct tells me that Trapilo has the early slight edge, and I do think slight. I put lead in air quotes there because it's just we don't have enough to go off on, but I do think you can kind of take these little tidbits like, oh, he got the first crack with the starters the first day, and the first day with pads, he got the first crack with the starters. So I do think they're kind of leaning into Ozzy, and they want to give him a shot to win this job. And so far, he's held his own in that regard. I do think all 3 guys are still in this competition. I think we're far from a resolution, but I like what I've seen and heard from Ozzy Trapilo so far. How about Grady Jarrett, the seasoned vet who the Bears were able to sign in NFL free agency? He stood out in the first padded practice as well, generated multiple pressures against the Bears starting offensive line. He looked the part before the pads came on as well, but he's a guy, trenches play really starts to get evaluated once the pads go on. So again, we're talking about 1 padded practice, but I think just in terms of his intangibles, his leadership, what he's bringing to this team off the field, but also he could still play. I don't think this is some Udonis Haslam situation where he's just a rah-rah guy. Like, I think he's going to be productive on game days, on Sundays. And listen, if he's still a good player, Javon Dexter, if he continues to ascend after last year, you could have multiple interior disruptors at that defensive tackle position, which is important if you're not going to get consistent pressure off the edge. Obviously, we're hoping Montez Sweat bounces back. We'll see what Dayo Odeyingbo can do, but to know Passanio got injured earlier today, unclear what his status is moving forward. We've talked about the lack of depth at edge, but you could make up for some of that in terms of pass rush consistency with guys up the middle, and if Jarrett and Dexter can provide that, that would be huge. Tremaine Edmonds, we've talked about him a little bit. Dennis Allen called him a dynamic playmaker, expects him to fit in well in this defense. The first play of training camp, he picked off Caleb Williams in the first team drill. So he's been making plays dating back to OTAs. And, I said it, we're hopeful that this new scheme benefits Tremaine, who obviously has a hell of a skill set. He's 6'5", 250, athletic profile off the charts. The instincts have been questionable, though. He's not the most instinctive player, but maybe this defense allows him to play faster and to play with more violence and consistency. And it would be a huge boost if he elevated his game next to TJ Edwards, who's kind of just Mr. Consistent. So we'll continue to monitor Tremaine, but it's been a good first week for him for sure. All right, guys, appreciate all of our new subscribers. A lot of you new guys have been flying to the channel recently since training camp started. Shout out to all of you. We got Anthony, Andy, Ethan, Michael, Nicholas, several of you guys subscribing, King, Jax, Alex, Anthony, Greg, 23, Jane in there as well, and a whole lot more. We're going to start giving out shout outs here on the channel periodically throughout training camp because we're able to see who our newest subscribers are. So appreciate all of you. If you want to shout out, hit that subscribe button. But more importantly, if you want free and daily Bears content, I can't shout everybody out, shout out as many as I can. But if you want free content, we got you covered. Hit that subscribe button today. Okay, our last camp winner, at least standout winner before we get to some honorable mentions, DeAndre Swift. I like where he's at right now. Even just in like the little drills that the running back group does with Eric Bieniemy, he's notably quicker than the other guys. And he's got juice, man, especially in open space, which we know that. But if he can become a little bit more consistent between the tackles, a little bit more decisive as a runner. I like that Ben Johnson said that Swift has taken last year personal, did not like how last year went. Seems like he's playing with the chip on his shoulder, as is the rest of this running back room, according to Ben Johnson. But even in a quote-unquote down year in a bad offense, he was behind a bad offensive line, by the way, he was still pretty damn productive this year. If the O-line is markedly improved, which we expect it to be, if the scheme is a better fit, which we expect it to be, and if Swift just plays a little bit better like he's capable of, I mean, could he rush for 1,100 yards and catch for 400? Like, is a 1,500-yard season a possibility? I mean, I wouldn't rule it out given the other backs in this room and just the pieces around him and the overall offensive philosophies that are going to be deployed here. He looks even quicker to me, too. He's catching the football a lot. I just think he's going to be featured in this offense, which, they paid him to be that a couple of off seasons ago. So I'm excited about where he's at. It's early on, obviously, but, he's the lead back in that room right now, and he's certainly going to get a notable workload, I would anticipate. Just some honorable mentions here. J.P. Richardson, he's kind of been that training camp darling so far. He stood out even today in one-on-ones, was able to get open a couple of times. He just a savvy player is the word I would use. Good route runner. Richard Hightower said he'll be in the mix at punt return, and that's kind of the path to the roster. If he could win the punt return job and then be a backup slot receiver, that's how you get onto the 53. Colston Loveland has only practiced in team drills twice, but he looks the part, made several more catches today. Roschon Johnson and Kyle Monungai pushing each other for that RB2 job. Both have had their moments. Nashawn Wright at corner has worked with the ones quite a bit with Jalen Johnson out. And Jaquan Brisker, he's been back. He's been healthy. Got through the first padded practice, no issues per reports, and looks good. So definitely excited to see him back out there this year. Okay, a few early camp losers. We're still kind of in the early parts of camp. It's hard to find guys who, kind of disappoint. And a lot of the guys who fall into the loser category, unfortunately, are just guys who get banged up. And that is Shamar Turner, who obviously was dealing with an injury in the pre-draft process. Now he's injured again, dealing with an ankle injury. And Brad Biggs of the Chicago Tribune reported that he's probably going to be out at least a month, that the Bears are bracing for him to be out for at least 4 weeks. So the good news for Chicago is outside of edge, they're actually a lot deeper at defensive tackle with Dexter, Jarrett. You've obviously got Andrew Billings, Chris Williams, who I thought had some good moments last year, Jonathan Ford. I mean, even a guy like Zach Pickens, he's been around. That could open up a opening for him, by the way, to potentially make this roster, whereas I felt like Pickens was on the outside looking in. So you've got depth at that position. It's just a bummer, though, because this guy is really talented, and I think defensive linemen, it takes longer for those guys to develop and really get up to speed, and missing these practices are pretty critical. Like Luther Burden, I'm not saying he's going to be fully up to speed, but wide receiver, you can catch up a lot quicker than you can, in my opinion, from a defensive tackle standpoint, because a lot of that is just the physicality of the NFL as well, on top of just learning all the stunts and different things that Dennis Allen is asking. So I do think this kind of should lower any expectations that we had for what he's going to do his rookie year, at least somewhat, because A, he's already behind a few guys, and B, he's now going to miss some critical reps. I mean, out at least a month, that probably means he's not playing in any of the preseason games, whereas I think he's a guy who probably would have played a lot in those games. So that's definitely a bummer, but still excited about his future. Still feel good about the defensive tackle group, but he's going to miss some time. So that's the latest on Shamar Turner. All right, we do have some Bears cutoff hoodies. Still a few left. Chatsports.com/Bears hoodie. Incredible deal that Fanatics has been running, and it's still 40% off. It was $55 to get one of these. Now they're just $33. Limited time only, limited in stock. Take advantage. Chatsports.com/Bears hoodie. Click and shop today. Okay, Luther Burton III. Now, this is kind of twofold because he did return to practice on Monday for the first padded practice, so I do think the arrow is pointing up. That's a good sign. We're obviously excited to have him back in the fold, but he missed all of OTAs. He missed mandatory minicamp. He missed the first 4 practices at training camp. In the first practice he returned, he did individual work, but he's not yet doing team drills, so a lot of catching up to do. Now, Colston Loveland has kind of shown you can play catch-up pretty quick if you hit the ground running, so we'll see if Luther Burton can do that. Hopefully, by next week, he's kind of going more full throttle, full participation, and is getting some opportunities with the first-team offense. I do think he's behind the 8 ball, though. If you played a game today, even if fully healthy, I would expect Olamide Zaccheaus to start over him. But the good news is plenty of time. It's not even August yet. Still feel good about him being back and being out there with the pads on. So definitely not sour on Luther Burton. I just think it's fair. Like, up to this point, he just hasn't been out there much. So I think he does fall into this category. How confident are you in Luther Burton for this year? Like, do you still have big expectations for his rookie year? Scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not confident at all, can't trust him, 10 being extraordinarily confident. I'd be like a 5 or 6. Like, I'm cautiously optimistic, but there's a lot of weapons, a lot of mouths to feed, and somebody or a pair of these guys between the receiver, running back, and tight end position are probably going to get less opportunities than others. And right now, he's probably in that category, just given the lack of practice time. Some other Bears injuries just wanted to outline, which kind of, puts them behind the 8 ball a little bit. Doug Kramer, he's day-to-day, doesn't sound too serious, but obviously, in the mix on the roster bubble to be a backup interior offensive lineman. Are they going to use him in a fullback role again? I'm not sure. Jalen Johnson on NFI. For me, it's like put him on ice until a week and a half before week 1. Just be ready to go against Minnesota. Don't need to see him in the preseason. And then Zay Frazier, who, again, is dealing with the personal issue, so we're not going to speculate. But the fact is, when you miss out on these reps, you fall behind. So that is certainly a situation to monitor as well. And then the last camp loser, I think you have to put Dayo Odeyingbo in this category. Didn't hear much about him before the pads went on. And then the one note I've seen with the pads on, 1 day in, it's not a huge deal, but so far this is what we have. Clay Harbor said this. He said, Dayo Odeyingbo didn't stand out in one-on-ones. He's very stout versus the run, can hold the point, but it's tough to see him becoming a big-time pass rusher. Hashtag the Bears, yada, yada, yada. He's just a player to me. When they paid him what they did, $16 million per year on a 3-year deal, it's basically a 2+1. And when you see all this money that's exploded, it really, I know everybody freaked out of money, and some still are. It's not some huge detrimental contract. I don't think we should view this as some guy who all of a sudden is going to be a 12-sack player. Like, can he give you 6 to 8 sacks and be a good edge setter in the run game? Like, that's what I would be shooting for. I just don't know how high the ceiling is. He's big, he's physical, but you know who he kind of reminds me of? A guy I didn't love in this draft, Shamar Stewart, who he looks the part in terms of his build, but he doesn't really have a variety of pass rush moves. He's kind of just a bull rusher who plays with power, and he's actually more effective as a pass rusher when they kick him inside because he can use his quickness against guards and centers. So, again, I think he's a high floor player, limited ceiling. Like, he's good. I think he can be a good player, but if we're expecting this guy to, be top 10 or 20 in sacks in the NFL, like, I'd be pretty surprised if he reached double-digit sacks. His career high is 8. If you told me today, hey, you could sign up for 8 sacks, I would absolutely sign that piece of paper. And then what about Caleb, you ask? Well, I don't think it's really fair to put him in either category. Obviously, he's been swimming uphill so far. They are throwing a ton on his plate. We are going to outline this further on another episode if you're watching live on Monday or later in the week, depending on when you watch. Some reporting from Albert Breer, comments from Ben Johnson and Declan Doyle, and it's been improving. I would say through the first 3 days, he would have fallen clearly in the loser category just based on it being sloppy, but the last two have been better. So that's a good sign. Certainly far from a finished product, not even close. If you had to pick, you'd probably put it in the loser category, but I think it's been a mixed bag, and given the context of what they're having him do and the amount of installs and just different looks they're giving him in terms of testing how much he can just absorb from a mental capacity standpoint. I think there's enough positives there so far because they're just throwing the kitchen sink at him, and they'll scale it back when they get closer to week one, when they figure out, okay, this is what he can do, this is what he can do. Okay, we'll keep this in there. That was good enough. That stuff, though, let's scrap that. That was not well executed. They'll do that as we get closer to week one. I think the point here is, before we dive into it more on another video, is clearly we need to see growth. It's got to improve throughout the course of the season, but patience is still required here, as hard as that is to hear as Bears fans, as we all want to see him ball out, and we all want to see this team win a lot of games. And by the way, I still think this team can win games, even if he's going through some growing pains, so keep that in mind. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of Chicago Bears Now, early camp winners and losers. We'll do this periodically throughout training camp, probably one more time before the first joint practice, and then we'll focus on those as they have a joint practice against Miami and Buffalo. My name is Harrison Graham. See you next time here on Bears Now.